Hello and welcome to Token for Your Thoughts, the podcast where we sit down with the people behind the companies shaping Web3. I'm your host, Lindsey McConaghy, and today I'm joined by Anthony Anzalone, aka Burnt Banksy, founder of XION. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lindsey, for having me. And I must say, Token for Your Thoughts is maybe my favorite name for a podcast that I've ever heard. So,
wow.
Very big
That's
applause
so
on that.
good
It
to
is
hear.
such a great name.
Thank you so much. It did take a while. I kept having all these really cool ideas, and of course, they were all taken. Okay, so I am really looking forward to our conversation today. You are doing such amazing things with XION, the first walletless blockchain built for mainstream adoption. You are making crypto disappear, and you're working with companies like Uber, Amazon, BMW. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. It looks like very impressive stuff. I have a lot of questions, but I wanted to start by getting to know you a bit more and just hearing, so our listeners can hear more about your journey leading up to this point. So if we can start by just having you tell us a bit about what you were interested growing up. Did you see yourself working in finance or tech?
So growing up, I played a lot of video games, and I grew up on my computer. So I knew it would be somewhere there, and all my parents would always say that I was always something there.
Okay.
My mom really, really wanted me to be a banker. Really wanted me to be a banker. And so that was, I would say, from like the ages of like 15 to maybe 19, what I thought I was going to do. And so I actually went to a school at NYU, originally studying finance, but like always loved tech. Like that was always kind of in the background. And I remember even working in every internship, I wanted to automate everything. I'm like, this is so inefficient. I hate this so much. It's menial and annoying.
Okay.
And, being in New York in 2015, 2016, consensus was like really a happening thing. And, all my friends were in tech, and, I ended up being just kind of in the scene, I guess. And in the scene also included NYU giving people free electricity, which you could use to then, of course, mine Ethereum. Long story short, I get kicked out of the NYU dorms. I'm not allowed back in the NYU dorms. I wasn't kicked out.
What?
I was just not allowed back. Huge difference.
Okay.
And I was working at an investment bank at the time in financial sponsors coverage group. And I had to go to a reprimandary meeting, and very similar to the scene in the movie Social Network. It was almost identical.
Really?
But I had to tell my boss, that so NYU thought I was hacking NYU because of how much computing power I was using, mining Ethereum.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm like, no, okay, fine, I'm not hacking, I'm just mining Ethereum. And they're like, okay, you're definitely hacking. What the hell is Ethereum? And I'm like, well, in typical banker fashion, I made a PowerPoint. And so I had a PowerPoint, Ethereum, and PowerPoint, what is Ethereum? And my boss is like, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be late. I have a reprimandary meeting. And he's like, what did you do? And I'm like, I have a PowerPoint. So, long story short, I go to SF to try to start the crypto group for TMT there, realize that I hate banking and like I don't want to do banking, and I love tech and I love crypto. And so kind of switched over to the computer science route, finished up my degree there. Worked at a company called Injective, lit up Banksy on fire, broke the record, and sold it as the highest NFT at the time. Now I go by Burnt Banksy, and now I'm working on XION, the crypto completely disappear. Don't know if that was too long-winded.
No, you gave a great overview. That's so interesting. I wonder how many other people brought PowerPoint presentations to reprimand meetings. If that was like a first for them. Like, let me explain.
I'm like, actually, this is why you're wrong.
Yes. And I think that's kind of nice that you pursued finance and banking because that's what your mum wanted. A lot of people, it can go the opposite way, right? They could just totally rebel if like their
Well, I
parents
did
have an
that
idea
when
for
I said,
them.
hey, I'm going to light this art on fire.
Yeah, came a bit later, but yeah, initially you were like, okay, I'm gonna pursue this route and we'll go
Yes,
down this
Mom.
path. Yeah, yeah. So a little bit. So yeah. Okay, we had some interesting events happen.
Yes.
And then you said, so yeah, you always love tech, you love gaming, you're in the bank, you're wanting to automate everything. So you switched to computer science,
Yeah.
finish up your degree, and then you get into crypto. So what was your first uh, intro to crypto? You said you joined a company in the space
Um,
first?
well, I was, I say practically roommates, but my best friend in college was Eric from CEO of Injective, and
Injective.
so he's who we mined Ethereum with. It's just me and him in
Okay.
my dorm room.
Hmm.
And then when he went off, he got incubated by Binance. I finished off my degree, and by the time that I finished and he came back to New York, I was just kind of at that office, and I knew that that was where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And here we are. I mean, we're exactly where we want to be.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then so were you at Injective when you decided to burn the Banksy? Was that later?
For like 3 months. Yeah, it was not.
Oh, okay. All right. And so after that, is that when you then decided to start Zion?
Yeah. And I can go into the full story of XION, but originally
Yeah.
we actually started off as an application. But yeah, I don't know. Can
Okay.
totally do that full story. But Zion is a very big show of scope creep. I will say that.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, no, let's get into it then. What what made you decide then to go from, being involved with a crypto project to going out, starting your own? Did you experience any problems firsthand? Did you just have big ideas and a vision? Like, did you see yourself becoming an entrepreneur? Yeah, because those are all
I
big decisions.
definitely, I definitely knew that I wanted to. I didn't really think that the Burnt Banksy was going to lead anywhere, quite honestly.
Hmm.
Like you have to understand the perspective at the time was that you know, come to think about it, like the highest NFT sold at the time before us was $50,000. We bought the Banksy art piece for $90,000. And so we're like,
Right.
even if we like break the current record, that's only half. But so like we didn't really expect a lot to come out of it. Fortunately, it sold for $400,000. We were pretty ecstatic.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
but coming from that, it was a very difficult process. As someone who was technical like myself, and some of the friends that I did it with, but it was a really, really challenging process. And even like my parents couldn't use OpenSea at the time. It was just an absolute, absolute nightmare. And it's just unusable. Like you had to have already been in crypto, had to already have had ETH, and so the idea was like we need to like we subscribe to the ideas of crypto that it is borderless, that we can find the next Einstein in Africa, and anyone can have the right to do anything that they want and bring kind of the world up to this level playing field. But it was like, how could you do that when no one could access the thing? That was
Hmm.
our so we actually originally started on this at the time brand new chain called Solana, um, and we were the first NFT marketplace on Solana. Built the first NFT standard there, built the first NFT collection standard there, and had like an app with like 30,000 daily active users. But then
Wow.
realized that yeah, and we had like great like Afrojack, someone from The Sopranos we were doing NFTs for. It was a lot of fun. Um, you
Very
know,
cool.
but but it was still like the process for someone to use the actual products that we were building was miserable. I mean, it was you still had to go to Coinbase, you still had to go to Phantom Wallet, you still had to buy
Hmm.
Sol, you had to bridge it over, and it was like, and this is when people wanted to use crypto. It's like, what's
Yeah.
gonna happen? Foreshadowing what's gonna happen when people don't want to use crypto.
Mm-hmm.
So it was at that point we kind of created the tagline of XION of like making crypto disappear, and in a
Mm-hmm.
genuine understanding of scope creep, our North Star is just we want people to have the benefits of crypto without needing to know all the complexities behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And series of almost 4 years of building this now. We're quite on our way. We have about I think 100,000. I think we launched about last month our mainnet with
Mm-hmm.
it was about 100,000 daily active users.
Wow.
With our products, so seeing over 1 million total users like on OS, as you mentioned, BMW, 150 other brands that we're working with as well. It's really, really exciting stuff, and all trying to make crypto disappear.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And congratulations on
Thank
that,
you.
because yeah, they're really impressive stats. So you started with an NFT marketplace. Obviously, you have the Banksy story. It- have you always been interested in like art in particular, or like a creative? Because there's obviously a lot of different areas of the crypto ecosystem, and you seem to have gravitated towards the NFT initially anyway. And I know with
Yeah,
Sion, there's like a gaming element, and it's more like the cultural aspect of use
yeah.
case.
It's a good question. I mean, it's funny because I know we say like at Zion we really just don't focus on DeFi. And I have really gravitated towards NFT, and I think that I think there's a lot of DeFi has been done in my mind. Like it's very saturated. Not to say anything bad. There's still innovation happening, but I think that there's an element of culture, and like when you combine a permanence of culture with the borderless aspect of crypto, you get
Hmm.
some really beautiful representations, and you get like this really cool connected feeling that you don't get in a lot of places. And I think for the first time, you've seen groups who would have never met each other in the entirety of the world coming together under a common goal. And I think that there's genuinely nothing that beats that, and that's an emotion that I like to feel.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. And that's something that art and culture can ultimately do. You get that level of connection. So yeah, I think that's totally relatable. So what was it like starting the company, getting it off the ground? Had you done any businesses before? Had founded any businesses before? Like had
I mean, like
any
a watch company
experience with
back in
it?
college, that doesn't count.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
I mean, like,
it's something.
I would say, like, aside from the mining, no, it was definitely my first
Hmm.
run of things.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of learning as you stumble over yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, what was it like kind of trying to get a team together, trying to get investments? Like, did you have anyone like initially? Was it just you at first?
It was easier to get investments than to get a team, I will say, hilariously,
Okay.
at that point in the market.
Right.
And I think that a lot of that was because of how new everything is, right?
Hmm.
And to find someone proficient is very difficult, especially when the thing just came out. You're not going to get
Hmm.
anyone with 5 years of Solidity experience in 2019.
Right. Exactly.
Um, and so, it's gotten easier, it's gotten better,
Hmm.
naturally, but I would say that, especially as a younger founder, I feel like you have much more hubris, and your bar is differently higher, like incorrectly higher, and you allocate towards incorrect things, such as like I definitely misallocated where like time at desk equaled kind of like productivity. And I think that's just a very common young founder trope to fall into.
Hmm.
And I think that there are things that I wish I did differently, but I'm happy where I am right now. So
Yeah. No, definitely. So would you say that getting a team together was the biggest challenge, or were there other things? Did you have like any kind of community? Like, were you in a place where there were other startups, or were you around other
now
people in the industry?
I would say like to find the team, honestly to find and things always change, of course, right? But like
Hmm.
but I would not say that like we started day one with the team. I would say that like the team, in the way that like when the pieces finally clicked and it was like, got it, this is our team. And like everything stopped shifting, title stopped shifting. I think that moment was very late. It was very, very late into the program. I would probably say like late 2022, like a year and a half, 2 years in. And I think before that was very much me struggling. And it was like bringing people in, letting them go, bringing more people in, like trying to, we hired you for this, let's try you here, let's try you here. But I think that like 2022 came along and it was just that kind of first aha moment where we're like, got it. We have a team.
Okay. Yes. It's like finally we've arrived.
Yes.
Are there any key learnings from that you could share for like other founders out there trying to find their team or in that stage of trying to work it out? Or was it just like trial and error and then you just eventually figure it out?
I would probably say that I wish I started with co-founders. That would probably be an easier way to do, like to just skip all the headache. Then like define the dynamic before you start, because once you start, everything moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Right. Yes, that fast paced at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I have worked in a co-working space before that has incubator programs, and one of the requirements is you have to have a co-founder, which I always think is interesting.
I do. You know, I mean, I think that's a great question. I mean, isn't it like the YC, your YC odds are better with a co-founder? You know, I've seen co-founders work. I've seen them not work. You know, at some point, you know, what if there's survival bias? But I also think that it depends on what you're trying to build. And, you know, if you have like this clear idea of like, hey, this is my specialty, this is my specialty, this is my specialty, which I think I was very young when I started this. And I don't think that I don't think it would have been right for me to like, I felt like I would have been putting on like pants that are 5 sizes too big for me and being like, I'm the CEO. And like, that's what it would have felt like. I feel like if I had come in with the people that I had now. And so, you know, I think in my position, I had to kind of like earn the part in a way. And then I think that's just the CEO. What does the CEO do? The CEO puts the people into the positions, right?
Yeah. And when you just started, did you have a clear vision? Like, what was your initial vision for XION? Because we're going to get into like all the use cases in a minute. But did you, because it encompasses quite a bit, did you have that initially, or were you just focused on one thing? How did that evolve?
I knew it might, well, so like, I mean, it depends when you're asking, right? Like, I always had the same North Star of crypto needs to be accessible and crypto needs to be usable. And I thought that was going to be able to be solved on the application side. I was incorrect. I then thought so application side, and then kind of came XION in this next form, which is then this infra layer, right? So a lot of that is just the same North Star is here, but I think like the Bezos thing, which is like stay strict on the strategy, but you know, I don't remember the exact words, but like maneuverable on the tactics. And we understood that there was more work to be done. And we knew exactly what we needed to get done because we were an application who wanted to build for this. And so we then became the L1 that we needed at the time. And then incessant amount of scope creep was able to kind of come to this final product. And that's still, of course, iterating, but of XION to make crypto disappear.
Amazing. All right. So talk us through XION and what you're offering.
Yeah. I mean, XION is the first and only walletless L1 meant to make crypto completely disappear. I don't want any, you know, a lot of crypto companies are really held back by the fact that you know, the only audience is the crypto audience because they have to follow the crypto playbook. People need to download wallets and bridge and all this stuff. And you're not allowed to tap into the network effects that can kind of come with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we allow is a completely Web 2 experience, with Web 2 in the front end, Web 3 in the back end, so that you can have the product that you want, the benefits with crypto that you want, but to the audience that you want, which is the world.
Amazing. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense because there's so many things like that out there that we use every day, and we don't have a deeper understanding of the technicalities. I mean, even just like normal money, I came across, like a visual of how normal money actually works. Like when you go in and buy something, and I was like, oh, I never even knew. There's like 4 steps of like what happens when you go into a store, buy something from a
Yeah.
merchant. There's like an acquirer, and then it goes to your credit card, and then the card issuer, and then it comes all the way back again. It's like absolutely no idea. Never thought of
Yeah.
that before, but I've always used money. You're just like you take your card in and it works. And there's just so many other things like that.
Think of the internet. I mean, that's what I always say. It's so weird. Like crypto is so weird in that way. Well, imagine if you to this day had to call up the merchant processor yourself and
Right?
like that would be so crazy. Or to know the biggest
Yeah.
merchant processors in the world. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
But why do
exactly.
we expect that for people here?
Yeah, I know. And why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because it is so new and the industry is just just constantly evolving and growing? So it's like we started with obviously Bitcoin, and then someone was like, hey, like I'm going to create a DEX. And then like, oh, we now need a bridge. And it's just where we are on the timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it is speed, where
Mm,
a lot of things that weren't solved effectively just become the issue of the consumer. I think the most obvious aspect of this is gas fees, which
mm-hmm.
is like, what do you mean this can change? Like, why don't we just solve this gas fee calculation instead of me spending either $4,000 one second or $30 the next second?
Right.
Right, or
Yes.
not seconds, but I've been in the ETH for long enough to remember the times where gas was $5,000 for an other
Oh my
side mint,
gosh.
and it was like you were
Yeah.
trying to use anything else on the network, you were screwed.
Mm-hmm.
But suffice to say, there are things like that, which is like these have not been solved, and because of how early it is. And I think that there's this, I believe in sovereignty and self-sovereignty an extreme amount, but I do believe that there's people who do take advantage of that. And I think that like not your wallet, not your keys is always 100% needs to be there. But then you have a lot of like centralized exchanges that just go right past that,
Mm-hmm.
but then sell people the same vision. And so people don't actually really know what most of the stuff is because they're being lied to, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. It can get a bit tricky there, especially when you don't understand the difference between
Yeah,
a
between
decentralized
the
exchange and a centralized exchange.
especially
And
when like the centralized exchange is tweeting not your keys, not your wallet. It's like, what?
really? Okay. Yeah, no, that's definitely confusing. All right. So can you talk us through a bit about the use cases that you offer? There's decentralized social platforms. You have the user acquisition. There's gaming elements. Lots of
Tons,
use
tons.
cases for this. So what are some of your favorites to talk about?
Some of my favorites is I mean you obviously have prediction markets, which is what one just launched today, which is really, really exciting. You have real estate on chain, and I think there's like two buckets, right, that I'll put a lot of these projects in. There's things that we've kind of seen before, but that can now reach a global audience, right? And that's like tokenized real estate.
Hmm.
Tokenized real estate's an interesting example of that, where we've seen tokenized real estate before, but a main reason that it hasn't succeeded was the main reason that might feel of the Burnt Banksy, which is like normal people cannot access this. Um, you
Okay.
know, plus a better regulatory environment, etc.
Hmm.
Then you get like new projects, which is like OS is an example of one of our favorite projects. And we always say that, but you know, these guys are trying to be the Google AdSense Web3, which is really, really exciting. And so, like, I'll give you an example of, we're working with Uber, and we made this announcement, but, soon you're going to, we already did 2 campaigns with Uber, and I can go into what we did there. But soon what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to link your Lyft or your Bolt or your Go or any kind of ride-sharing app. And if you're a top rider, Uber will literally pay for you to swap over to Uber.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah, so we're really excited for that. And I'm like, these guys are awesome. They come from Uber and the traditional advertising world. Bunch of killers, and knew exactly what they were building. And, I love new innovations, which is like, we still get the value when we remove the aspects of crypto.
Yeah. Yeah, the NOS, I've seen like the stats around that, around companies like saving money on their ad spends, and
I think they just hit 1 million users today too.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Very exciting.
Yeah, so it clearly works, and it's getting great results for the partners you're working with. Yep. I was curious about because I know we say, you don't focus a lot on the blockchain side because you're trying to make it disappear, obviously, but what does the blockchain element add that like a traditional user acquisition platform wouldn't have?
So one of the things is like, how could you send $5 to 10 million people around the world, especially if they don't, like, no one can have an American bank account across the world. And so like our first one was, the way we started with Uber was like Uber Eats Growth Japan, right? And like we started growing larger and larger, but it was like, you can't send $5 to 10 million people across the globe. You can send $5 to 10 million Americans, but not across the globe. And then with ZKTLS, and I'll spare a lot of that, it's how we can prove securely and verifiably without exposing any of the user's personal information or even storing it anywhere that the user has ridden on Lyft and is a top rider and has swapped over to Uber.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. It's really enabling them to reach new markets and scale beyond the US or the markets they're already in. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Exactly.
Amazing. So talking about these incredible partners that you're working with, how did you get them as partners? I mean, were you like pitching them? Do you have an amazing network? I'm sure a lot of people are like, this is incredible. I mean, can you tell us a bit about that process? Because I mean, these are huge companies, huge names.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of that comes from the NOS team, quite honestly. Like working with them is like, I think that one of the things that we saw back early on, with like Polygon and things like that, is if you try to say like, hey, brand, take, crypto and just try to like mash it together, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But if you can provide the tools so that projects can work with these like massive brands and solve problems that they have, such as NOS, then we've won. And like, then it gets to a point where it's like, if you want to work with any of these brands, like you effectively almost need to go through that.
Right. So with the experience being Web 2, and I've seen that you say people can log in, with an email or something very similar to how they would navigate the normal web. What does that mean in terms of security? Because, I think the first thought that people might think is like, oh, is there some element of centralization there? Like, how does that work in terms of decentralized, centralized security, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, we are a proof of stake network. We are utilizing the Tendermint BFT consensus mechanism. When it comes to like, I would say that most of the time, like where we get to like with security, which is like the login part, like the walletless, the login part, we see it as a range and a spectrum, right? Like, I think that's a very unfortunate part about where we are in this industry is like, the people who are the hyper secure will never be happy with kind of the grandparents we want to onboard. The only thing that we can do is build for Web 2 with Web 3 in mind and the ethos and everything in mind. And I'll give you an example, right? Like you can use Google as your main sign-in, just as you would in any Web2 company. Or you can use your MetaMask or your Phantom wallet or your Ledger, or you could add all of them. Or you can get a new private key and swap them out whenever you wanted. We've actually been able to do really, really, really exciting things to be able to placate for both the very traditional Web3 audience, but then also the Web2 audience. And so making sure that someone's like, well, I don't know what a wallet is. They don't need to. But someone who does know what it is and does want to keep secure, we do have a Ledger integration coming up soon, which I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about. But
All right, you had it here first, guys.
yeah, I guess that goes the announcement. Yeah, that should be fine. But yeah, we'll obviously all come from Web3, and we keep the ethos of Web3 in mind, but we're building for Web2.
Yeah, that's awesome though. So you actually you do have a range, so people can, depending on where people are, if you said they're super secure, Web3, very competent in that.
Where they are, wherever.
Yeah, that's great. All right, and in terms of, I guess, how you've been received by the partners you're talking to, obviously you've gone in with a really strong, offering of, hey, we can help you grow your user base and reach new markets. When you explain that you're using blockchain, and how is that received? Do you have people who are like, okay, this is great, this is forward thinking, or are some people still a bit reserved or cautious around it?
Surprisingly, no. I would think that more people would be more reserved, but I think that luckily, we're in a very fortunate situation where it's most of the time, and I would say it's definitely mostly in when we're hiring, which is we definitely hear this finally kind of aspect come out, which is, I mean, for me, always great to hear, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. All right, and so XION has been described, it's like you guys have a cult-like following.
Yes, we do. We are a cult, actually.
Yeah, I saw a recent announcement, and it just plain out went and said it. We are a cult.
We are a cult.
And this is what we're doing. And I love the language is just so bold and colorful. I was like, this is awesome.
Thank you.
And how have you cultivated such a passionate community around the platform? I mean, or is it just happened?
It honestly just happened. It really honestly just happened. I remember, you could look at some of my tweets. There's a tweet thread about this. And I was my first tweet is quote, "Hey guys, I'm missing stand-up. I need to research cults today." And then my second one is a Google search of do cults call themselves cults? And it was
great.
you know what it is? It's very much my energy. And it's a lot of fun. And I remember after that I put up a job description for cult leader, which got picked up by a bunch of media outlets. And then to come realize, one of the lines was requirements, must have charisma because no one's going to drink Kool-Aid for someone with the personality of a brick. And it was
amazing.
It was what was it success will be measured in, devotees. I mean, the whole language was it was hilarious. It was my favorite JD that I've ever written in my entire life. Got picked up.
Gonna have to look this up. Is it still out?
Great.
Online?
I think it might be on our Twitter or X, whatever.
Okay.
But
we'll
I
link
think
to it in the show notes.
Yeah. I think I'm double checking. Yeah, it's the first one. And then what came after that was propaganda specialist, and then divine iconography specialist.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Propaganda specialist. That's amazing.
And so it's just we leaned into it. People loved it.
Yeah.
And it was the energy that we bring, which is hilariously, we're so sick of being in this industry without change. And it's just the idea of just, no, yeah, we'll kill you.
We're coming. We're here. Watch out.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is all in good fun. And I think that I remember I was doing a panel one time, and or I was doing a keynote, and I was woken up it was an hour before I wake up, and I get a message just hey, can you get a deck together in an hour. I'm like, it's like we were able to get you a keynote, and I was like,
Wow.
can I do whatever I want? And they're like, yeah, sure, just get it in an hour. I'm like, okay, how to run a cult? It was called Cultivating Devotion, and then like the
Brilliant.
XION in devotion. So
Oh,
then it was just
nice.
like cult equals Zion.
Very
Um,
nice.
but yeah, and then I remember like I came off stage and there was this one like 7-year-old lady. She goes, I thought you were violent, but now I know you're not.
Oh my
I'm like,
gosh.
okay, I don't know what that means, but thank you, I guess.
Oh, sounded like a positive outcome for her.
It wasn't
So
positive outcome.
that's great. I thought you were violent. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, that I guess it shows the power of, having founder-led marketing and just
It's so
being out
important.
there and being authentic as well and just putting your true self out there. Because clearly
Be
people like
insane,
it, they
whoever's
resonate.
listening.
It's also just fun too.
It
I mean,
is
it's,
fun.
yeah, like why not?
I
Especially
couldn't do
when,
it if it's boring. Like I
yeah,
really can't. I could do boring for a little bit, but if you're trying to like,
right.
I cannot tweet
Yeah.
boring. I'm trying my best sometimes. Like I get
Hmm.
yelled at. I remember like I was told to tweet more about Zion and less about like threats or something, or violence. Just like, come on.
Oh, yeah. What? Why?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Yeah. Explain the logic.
No, it's okay.
Um, yeah, and you've been quite vocal about your journey on
Yeah.
X. And so how has that been too? Is it kind of invigorating, getting feedback? Is sometimes are you just sometimes you think you're going to get a different reaction than you do? What is that like? Just being so open about the journey and
I
what
think
you're
it's
doing.
easy when it's easy, but I think when like, there are like tough days,
Yeah.
sometimes it's very hard to be like, okay, I still got to be out here. And I think
Yeah.
those are the times where like being really authentic is extremely important because
Hmm.
it's so hard to when you really like you just want to kind of like hide under a cover to then just
Yeah.
like keep going. And
Yeah.
it's holding me to a like my own standard of like it's not for me anymore. Like it really isn't. Like I got to keep going for the syndicate. Not like I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop, but it's like
Hmm.
I got this cult that counts on me. We got to
Love it.
keep going. We got to keep
Yeah.
keep the fire burning.
Seriously, yeah. It's all about the cult. You got to show up for them.
Cult. Always show up day and night for the cult.
Yeah, I know. We all have those days, right? Like you're not,
Yeah, you have to.
everyone has an off day.
You
So
always gotta crash
yeah,
out in order to lock in. You can't.
totally. Yeah, exactly. All right. So who would you say? I mean, you have an amazing like roster of partners. I mean, do you have an idea of like who are your ideal partners and users? If you could paint a picture or give us some examples. I mean, we've talked about companies from quite like different sectors,
Yeah.
obviously like big names. Do you have anyone in particular who you're like, we really, really want to get into this particular sector or type of business?
I think I want Zion to be the place that defines consumer crypto because I don't know what that means yet. I
Hmm.
think it's very vague and it's yeah, you can think of like social, you can think of some other things, but
Hmm.
I don't think it's been defined yet. And I
Hmm.
would love to be the place where that's defined. And I think that is our main goal.
Yeah. I think that's a really good answer. It seems like it's another North Star where you're like, this is where we want to go.
Yep.
And yeah, we'll see how we get there. But it's a good, just
Yeah,
overlying big goal to have and work towards.
exactly. We're very fortunate to have so many amazing people and so many amazing backers and amazing team, community, and just everything that helped push us through.
Totally. And where do you have any goals of like where you're hoping to be in like the next year or two? Anything specific that you're working towards?
My main KPI for this year is I want 5 projects with 100,000 daily active users by the end of the year. I
Nice.
want to be, and then it kind of comes into like expanding it to different countries and
Hmm.
deployments. But like, I think that we're going to be able to tap into the network effects that come with both Web 2 and Web 3, like
Hmm.
no other crypto project ever has because of the major friction. Um, and so once we can do that, we're going to be able to do that rapidly, and then we're going to be able to actually understand what crypto means.
Hmm.
Because I
Absolutely.
think people think crypto is just cryptocurrency, and it's not.
Hmm. No, yeah, it's so much more than that, for sure. All right, well, is there anything else you would like to talk about, or any other insights
Did I do the
you'd want to
story?
share?
Was that a good? Did I do enough stories or?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good.
So many good stories. I love it. The reprimand meeting, like we've had grandma come up at the talk. Yeah, you have a lot of interesting stuff. Yeah, so many great insights, and thank you for being so candid about your journey, especially talking about how you built the business and your journey coming into crypto and how you found the industry and growing XION. It's been a really fascinating chat and just so interesting lifting the lid to hearing about what it's like, building a successful business and then also just helping fast track the adoption of crypto. I feel like that's what everyone is wanting. It's what everyone talks about. But I mean, it's like you're actually doing it. You have these big companies in Web2 actually coming in and utilizing blockchain for real world problems that they need. So it's just amazing. You've done so much. You have amazing, results already. So it'd be really interesting to see where XION goes and what's next for you guys.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Very excited ourselves.
Yeah. So what's the best what is the best place for people to connect with you? Everyone. Where can people go to find out more about XION? Oh, we need to look up this job description as well.
Yes.
So I'll link that into the show notes.
Yes,
I'm curious about that. Yeah.
Definitely, I would say Twitter probably is going to be the best place to find us. Like second step would be Discord, then diving in and chatting with us and eventually kind of Telegram. But, it is, it's a journey and, whether you're, I would say like one of the initiatives that we're having, sorry to kind of stray, is like, we really believe in hyper-localized growth. And we think that taking that like Uber style approach is really, really important. And we need to create developers where they are. And so we're creating XION houses all over the world. And, whether you're just like a person who's right now we're starting in Argentina, Nigeria, and Lisbon. But by the end of the year, we're going to be ideally in 50 places, whether that be cities or countries. And so if you just want to be involved in any capacity around the world, please reach out. We have an amazing growth team that'll be handling that. And we're super excited to work with everyone.
That is so cool. So like actual houses where people go and live and work?
I'm not necessarily live. I mean, I lived at the office for a little bit, but I would say
pull out bed.
Yeah, I wish it was a pull out bed. It was a pillow and like a blanket. But no, but I mean, it depends on the location really and where we can kind of place. But like the way that it starts is going to be like small meetups. But yeah, eventually like full blown offices, but like co-working spaces for meetups and projects and ingenuity to thrive.
I love that. That's amazing. And I think that's so important. I'm such a big advocate for that. I mean, I used to work at a co-working space and I remember thinking like, I don't know, I can go work at coffee shops or I can work at home. And I went in to visit and just immediately the energy, I was like, I love this place, signed up on the day. And you just meet so many interesting people doing all kinds of different things. You learn so much, just from when you go to get coffee. There's such special places. So I think that's amazing that you're creating more spaces like that. Obviously, a lot of people work remotely and work from home, but I think it's such an important part of like still having connection and just having that meeting of the minds and sharing ideas and just the excitement. Like it's just really energizing, when you're in a space like that. So that's really cool. Definitely be watching that space.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll be excited.
All right. Very cool. Well, that's it for today's episode of Token for Your Thoughts. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for more interviews with people building Web3. Anthony, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you, Lindsay. And again, phenomenal name. I love Token for Your Thoughts. This has to be my favorite.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really kind. All right. Thanks, Anthony.
Bye, everyone.